looks like we began. Did we?
Well, we haven't begun. I just started recording so that I wouldn't forget.
All right.
And I noticed that we're coming up on the hour. So do we feel ready? Does anybody have any questions? It seems like the order got hashed out and everything.
Yeah. What about Alicia?
Yeah, that's what I was dealing with. Sorry, I missed what you guys were doing, but it seems that she was just logging in with a different email. So we're trying to, she should be joining us any moment.
Amazing. Okay. Yeah, I feel ready. As long as everyone's happy with their bios, that was my only big thing, and I didn't want to send you more emails. So.
Okay.
Cool.
Should we start then?
Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll hit start and then I'll do my little intro. And Emily, I should ask, is there anything else I should say about you? I was just going to thank you at the start.
No, I'm good. That's enough. Okay. Thank you, though.
Of course. All right, let's do this. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight for the launch party of for Louisa Flynn Goodlet's debut full-length poetry collection, Look Alive. We have a quintet of readings tonight to celebrate. Louisa is joined by Kei-Ming Chang, Alicia Mountain, Autumn Choi Wild, and Meg Day. I know we're all in for a super treat this evening. My name is Evan Karp. I'm the events manager of Booksmith. We're an independent bookstore and mainstay of San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury district since 1976. I'd like to begin by thanking Emily Phipps, who is tonight's ASL interpreter. Emily, thank you so much for being here and doing this for us tonight. So thank you all so much for being here tonight, for supporting local authors and independent bookstores. I'm very happy to turn it over to Louisa now. Louisa, congratulations. Take it away. Thanks for being here with us.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the launch of Look Alive, hosted by the wonderful folks at the Booksmith. Before you hear from the poets that have very kindly joined us to celebrate tonight, I just want to say a few words of thanks to the people who have loved and supported me through the 10 years that it took for this first book to make it into the world. First, I want to thank Sophia Starmack, my unbelievably generous writing partner and dear friend. None of this would be possible without her. I must also acknowledge the brilliant Diana Liu, who so beautifully designed the cover and has done the same for so many of my previous publications. She is such a talent. And I'm grateful for my wife, first reader, and excellent copy editor, Anna Anderson, who makes sure there is both red and roses. I'm lucky to have parents and friends who never stopped encouraging and believing in me, even when I had a hard time believing in myself. I'm also indebted to the community of Foglifter Press, which opened my mind to the endless possibilities of queer and trans writing and made me brave enough to write these poems. And I'm grateful to my wonderfully kind and patient editor, James Brubaker, and Southeast Missouri State University Press, who chose this book for their Poetry Book Prize. And finally, thank you all for being here. I'm so lucky to be read, which means I get to live in a way that centers my writing, and that's all I ever wanted. So now on to the exciting part. I get to introduce some fantastic poets, and since this is my party, I want to celebrate them and their words that have brought me so much joy. And once we're done reading, we're going to have a short Q&A for all of our poets. You can type your questions right into the chat, and then I'll choose a few for us to chat about and ask them to the readers. So first up is Meg Day. Deaf genderqueer poet Meg Day is the author of Last Psalm at Sea Level, Barrow Street 2014, winner of the Publishing Triangle's Audre Lorde Award, and finalist for the 2016 Kate Tufts Discovery Award, and the co-editor of Laura Hershey on the life and works of an American master, Pleiades 2019. The 2015 to 2016 recipient of the Amy Lowell Poetry Traveling Scholarship, and a 2013 recipient of an NEA Fellowship in Poetry, Day's work can be found in, or forthcoming from, Best American Poetry 2020, The New York Times, Agni, Beloit Poetry Journal, and elsewhere. Day is Assistant Professor of English and Creative Writing at Franklin and Marshall College. Please welcome Meg.
Louisa, I'm so excited for tonight. Thank you and huge congratulations. This is, I'm glad that tonight is finally here. I'm lucky to read alongside you tonight and to read alongside Autumn and Cayman and Alicia. Thank you so much for including me in what I imagine will be a very special night. I can't wait to celebrate with you in person when the world reopens in a way that brings us together in ways we recognize. I'm going to read 3 brief poems, a love poem, and a love poem, but all to different people. This poem's called 10 a.m. is when you come to me. In some other life, I can hear you breathing, a pale sound like running fingers through tangled hair. I dreamt again of swimming in the quarry and surfaced here when you called for me in a voice only my sleeping self could know. Now the dapple of the aspen respires on the wall and the shades cut its song a staff of light. Leave me, that me, in bed with a woman who said all the sounds for pleasure were made with vowels I couldn't hear. Keep me instead with this small sun that sips at the sky blue hem of our sheets, then dips and reappears, a drowsy penny in the belt of Venus, your aureole nodding slow and copper as it bobs against cotton in cornflower or clay. What a waste the groan of the mattress must be. When you backstroke into me and pull the night up over our heads, your eyes are 2 moons I float beneath. And my lungs fill with a wet hum, your hips return, it's Sunday. Or so you say, with both hands on my chest. And hot breath is the only hymn whose refrain we can recall. And then you reach for me, like I could have been another man. You make me sing without a sound. This next poem is called Reasonable Accommodation. And it has a content warning for gesturing toward domestic assault. And it takes its title, Reasonable Accommodation, from the 1990s greatest hit, the Americans with Disabilities Act, which requires accommodation be provided to deaf and disabled folks such as myself only when reasonable. You've met me halfway between the door to our bedroom and the other I doubt is real only because you are always gesturing, there it is, as if getting to an exit is as simple as its existence, as if your body, real or imagined, does not make a door a taunt you can point to but not touch. You touch me like I'm a door that won't open. The first fight ended here too, my back to the wall and your body keeping it there. Every hand and mouth an act of contrition in an argument I was sure I'd misheard until you were kneeling to beg me, stay. Only then did I understand yours was a language of secret orders and mine a language of hidden sounds. You thought you had to teach me yourself. Tonight, my shoulders relax into the dimples they make in the drywall, the pair of them joining the others in repetition down the hallway, a stampede through snow. Look at the tracks they've left, all the animals my body didn't mean to be. Tonight, there is no feast. Tonight, you are only sorry God's name is the one I choose to say aloud. When you touch me like you believe you could put a door anywhere if you just push hard enough. Like if I wasn't so unreasonable, I could just accommodate myself. Like if it's so hard, why don't you just leave? There it is. There I am, opening a door in a wall with a body I should want to exit. You touch me like I'm an animal that needs correcting. You touch me like it's for my own good. And wasn't this my request? Didn't I ask you to speak to me only with your hands? And this last poem takes up the language of closed captioning. Closed captioning is a big part of my life as a deaf poet. And my favorite kinds of closed captioning are when the captions read inaudible, because it's this visible recognition of the fact that we're all looking at a thing that we can't hear. It's one of my favorite kinds of camaraderie. This is called Portrait of My Gender as Inaudible. I knew I was a god when you could not agree on my name, and still none you spoke could force me to listen closer. Is this the nothing the antelope felt when Adam lit on his own entitling, dubbed family, genus, species? So many descendants became doctors, delivered babies, bestowed bodies, names, as if to say it is to make it so. Can it be a comfort between us, the fact of my creation? I was made in the image of a thing without an image, and silence too is your invention. Who prays for a God except to appear with answers, but never a body, a voice? If I told you, you wouldn't believe me because I was the one to say it. On the first day, there was no sound worth mentioning. If I too am a conductor of air, the only praise I know is in stereo, one pair, an open hand and closed fist will have to do. I made a photograph of my name. There was a shadow in a field, and I put my shadow in it. You can't hear me, but I'm there. Thank you so much. I can't wait for the rest of tonight.
Oh, that was glorious. I loved it so much. Yeah, wow. You all are so amazing. I just feel really happy. Okay. Ka-Ming Chang is a Kundiman Fellow, a Lambda Literary Award finalist, and a National Book Foundation 5 Under 35 honoree. She is the author of the debut novel Bestiary, which I recently read, and it's fucking incredible, from One World Random House. Please welcome Ka-Ming.
Hi, thank you so much. I just want to say congratulations, Louisa. It's just so incredible. And I'm really honored to be here and to be reading alongside you all. So congrats. And I'll be reading 3 kind of prose poems. Not sure of their genre, but thank you. Oh, and I want to also mention a trigger warning for mentions of physical violence in the first one. Thank you. The first poem is called Asymmetry. I cut my mother's hair every month since her hands went wild. They're rabid, boomeranging around the room, returning every touch twice as hard, slapping her face when she's asleep, ambushing mosquitoes, crawling under the sofa like rodents. I cut her hair shorter in the front than in the back. She likes asymmetry, the unevenness of things. She claims that's why she fell in love with my father. He had one eye that was double-lidded and one that was single-lidded, one smaller than the other, which my mother called Long Feng Yan, dragon phoenix eyes, a sign of good luck. Eyes like coins, like currency, spending themselves empty. Every month, I spray my mother's hair from the roots to the tips, trace the cowlick on her scalp, trim away the bleached brittle ends. Unlike her, I prefer symmetry. I cut my own hair in a bob so abrupt that my friends call me a cartoon character. I like straight lines, pleats, windows that are perfectly square, cornered light. I don't like things that hinge or open by themselves, like doors or mouths or paths. The woman who taught me at cosmetology school had a haircut like my mother's. Asymmetrical, red highlights, bangs dangling over one eye. One day in class, she volunteered to be my practice customer. I kept looking at her face in the mirror instead of at her hair, at my own hands, and so I nicked her by accident. The left ear tip. I touched my tongue to her ear, sucked away the blood. It was instinct, I told her later, but she still expelled me. Said I needed to learn limits. How could I explain that whenever I saw blood, I could only imagine it inside my own mouth? That once, days after I spoke back to my father and he slapped me, one of my eyes was swollen shut and the other remained open. How I couldn't bear to look at the asymmetry of my eyes in the mirror. One dragon, one phoenix, wondering what woman could fall in love with looking this way. That is the first piece. And the second one is called Kite Fighting. Feifei is the one who teaches us flight, how to burn holes into the kite's skin with a cigarette butt so the wind threads through. Feifei lights a cigarette, coats the string in powdered glass and rice glue. She takes us out to the abandoned lot behind the apartment building and shows us how to feed our kite to the mouth-sized sky. When I ask her if kites bleed, if they feel pain, she laughs and says not to worry. Kites are too hollow for hurt. The point of fighting, she says, is to fly, to stay in the sky longer than Shangdi. Keep the line taut so it cuts clean, she tells me. If it goes slack, the kite will sway. She steers the body of the kite like a blade. She told me once that her cousin caught his kite in a power line and got electrocuted when he tried to tug it down. That's why we don't have electricity sometimes, she said, because his ghost forbids the light from fondling our bones. The thing you need to learn, she tells me, is how to lose. Sometimes, she says, it's necessary to cut your own kite loose. Sometimes a crow mistakes your kite for a mate and fucks it full of holes. Or sometimes the kite coasts like smoke into a tree and you have to sever it clean. Every night when I call my mother in another country, when she tells me it'll be soon she'll send for me, I tell her about the kites, Feifei's next fight, how one day I'll open my window and the sky will release a new species, flocks and flocks of kites in every color, and I will reach out and snip each one free, send them all to California. I tell her to keep watch and wait. Someday the kites will gather above the salon where she works all day with 6 pairs of scissors and so many strangers. They will come, I say. They will carry the sky to you. Thank you. And this is the last one. This is called Half Moon Bay. When Yeye died, I drove my girlfriend to see the bay at low tide, the sea baring its black teeth. Once Yeye said the moon was born in 2. Light lives to seek its mortal half, flipping our faces like coins to find the one it completes. When they called to tell me, my sisters were sharing a phone, speaking the words so slow it was 2. He's dead. Their teeth grinding into salt. He said once, the moon is a man who will marry you someday. At the bay, my girlfriend calls to me in a language he never knew. Her mouth around my name is the moon. And that's the last one. Thank you so much for listening.
Wow. It's really interesting to have just read Bestiary and to see like the kite images and like, I feel like the blood in the, like there's like, it's not obviously, but there's just some beautiful resonance with the book that I just spent a lot of time with. So next up is Alicia Mountain. Alicia Mountain is the 2020 to 2021 Artist in Residence in the Department of English at the University of Central Oklahoma. She's a lesbian poet, interdisciplinary artist, and educator. Mountain won the Iowa Poetry Prize with her debut collection, High Ground Coward, Iowa 2018. She's also the author of Thin Fire, a digital chapbook published by Boat Press. Mountain earned an MFA at the University of Montana in Missoula and her PhD at the University of Denver. She's based in New York. Please welcome Alicia.
Hello, hello. Congratulations, Louisa. I am so excited for you and so happy to be here with these folks to celebrate you. I wish that we could, as I told Louisa, I was like, wait, I want to go out and celebrate after and go dancing and do all of the proper book launch things. So we will just do a rain check for that, but it's in the works. If you will allow me, I would love my first piece of reading to be from the back of this beautiful book that we are celebrating. I got to blurb it, and I just insist that I get to like brag about our Louisa Flynn Goodlett. So you know what you're getting. Like you gotta buy this thing. That's why we're here, people. You gotta buy the thing. And so I'm gonna sell it. Louisa Flynn Goodlet's smart, sensual, agile collection takes you to the prairie, to the creek, to the kitchen counter, to bed, muddies you, then scrubs you clean. With a speaker who keeps your secrets and shouts your glories, Look Alive reveals the enduring territory of embodied queer womanhood, efflorescent and as susceptible to pleasure as it is to harm. Flynn Goodlet quilts together rural origins and distance traveled, along with rich image and hard-wearing language into an impressive debut with the weight of an heirloom. If you let it, Look Alive can be the guardian inoculation that pierces you with a little taste of the big grief and the big joy, so you can survive them when they come. Woo! Okay. Poems of mine. Let's see, I am going to read new poems. So this one is called Honeycomb Come On. I get tired and I sneeze. I forget to quit the program, though the call has stopped. I'm not one of those people to put tape over the camera. The recipes are always just to get an idea. I work with what I got. My one improvisatory realm, imagining I am on the cooking show where you have to figure out what to do with the disparate elements. Finally, there was a vacuum, and finally I cared. At others' homes, I can't look away from the corners. I can't become unallergic to the cats that everyone coos over. But I can be polite about it. I can put on a nice tie and wrap a couple gifts and mind my own beeswax when appropriate. I can, I think, at least sometimes, if I try, go with whatever flow is going. And this next one is called Plumless Icebox. I'm from New Jersey, so I have to do a William Carlos Williams nod every once in a while. Plumless Icebox. Snow in the high beams, like deep space, like stars. I drove out to the lighthouse and 4 o'clock looked like night. I wasn't as moved by the beacon as I wanted. Coming back, I pulled off to have a talk with the sea. In the indie movie version, Montauk in winter means, even if I erase you from memory, we will have loved. The shore was getting itself worked up for the storm. I didn't yell. I didn't keep my face dry in the shoving wind. I didn't call you or anyone. I watched the churning, the water turn a different kind of dark from the night. When I'd had enough and turned my back to it, the snow was filling in my footprints, pretending to be another sand. I talked to you out loud to myself on the drive home. In the dark, 2 deer pick up their heads from the highway shrubs to look at the headlights. I talk to them too. I say, don't do anything crazy. And they don't. And I don't. And I have no idea what you do anymore. The snow hits the water and it's gone. And one more. This is a poem called Entreaty Now, and it's after a poem by Joanna Klink that's called Almanac, I believe, and I dedicate it to Mary Oliver and to you guys and to Louisa tonight. Entreaty Now. Go out barefoot to the car for what you left, for what you didn't have enough hands to hold. Go out as a soft offering for gravel, as a practice swing at walking farther and farther from the comforter, from the sighing, waiting body you hold when you want to, from the steady window pane shadow cast by a night so bright, even minor constellations get to speak light. They are furnace-ready pilot lights when the rest of the power's gone out. They are all the failed matches that couldn't get the cigarette lit, a persistent sign to go back inside of yourself. To make each night a ripe stone fruit, to split and pull the pit from it, to bite the flesh of rest and let it drip. And when you have made a mess of yourself, to know there were rows of orchard planted in you before any other knowing. We are daylight animals. We still confuse the porch light with something that could burn us. How much is enough quiet for you? A bucket of quiet, a highway, a tundra, the brownstone block and its bus line and its cloistered cement backyards, the pace at which gentle weeds grow them green. Weeks of absence loud with countdown. Was the daytime grocery quiet enough? Linoleum enough? Was the exam room a little chilly when the nurse left you alone with yourself? How often you awaken screens at a phantom sound of love. The refrigerator breathing to you in the night. Our blueprint plans are drawn and unbuilt and soundless. And what are we to do? Here, a life. A sudden and short rain, too quiet, and you won't be certain it was real. Let go of the compass. It never had answers. Let the paper drop to your feet. Go now. Run downhill toward the creek. Run toward the thing that you think will mean a happiness without hesitation. Feel the swift force of your own mass behind decision, and legs churning, tall grasses stinging against skin, iron taste in your mouth from how your heart pounds. There is a thrill in the fear of tripping at this speed, of grass becoming sidewalk, of coming up bloodied. You don't have to be good at this, at anything. You just have to run headlong into this life, pumping, hair wild, sweat wild, emptying your pockets as you go. Thanks.
How are you all so amazing? I mean, I knew you were amazing. I invited you, but also, how are you so amazing? This is incredible. Wow. How can we even continue? That was so beautiful. Okay, we are continuing. Autumn Choi Wilde is a queer Korean-American poet who grew up in the slam community of Ann Arbor, Michigan. Their debut book of poems, Cut to Bloom, was the winner of the 2019 Write Bloody Book Contest. Autumn is a Kundiman Fellow with an MFA in poetry from Sarah Lawrence College. Their work appears in Barrow Street, the Massachusetts Review, Pleiades, Split This Rock, and other publications. They work as the director of the Progressive Teaching Institute and as a diversity coordinator at a school in New York City. Please welcome Autumn.
Hey, good people. Wow, thank you to all the readers. I am over here sitting by myself, so moved and touched and inspired by your work. So excited to be here celebrating this tonight. Wow, I just love how in these poems there's the magic of talking true about something hard, right? So you can go after the choices that trauma perhaps is trying to take away. And I just love the defiance and the daring of imagining something new that's captured in these poems. And I'm just so glad that they're out there queering up the room, and so honored to be celebrating this book launch tonight in this beautiful queer room. And I'm gonna start off with an Ars Poetica followed by another new poem. And to add to the different content warnings, this one has a content warning about suicide. Ars Poetica. Let's suppose that a 16-year-old girl gets up on a stage in a knit brown hat and shares a poem about a boy she's trying not to love too much in the crowd. Instead of shoving her heart back under the collar of her shirt, roars and asks for more. Let's say that watching this was exactly the moment I needed to believe in the truth again. I testified in court to say my father beat us. Truth. I helped jail the parent I still loved in secret. Truth. Let's say the night before I'd swallowed 64 Advils. No one finding me when I took the rattling bottle from the cabinet, or when I downed the first 20, counting and swallowing 2 by 2 like my mouth was Noah's Ark. I wake up alone on the bathroom floor some hours later, a stew of red pills half dissolved around my head. I clean it up, half dizzy, still unfound. Let's say the girl in the knit hat was honest without it costing her something she couldn't replant. That letting us see the mutant her words made of love helped her kiss the doorway of a church. Let's suppose poetry is not about turning your hunched back into an altar, not about turning the pieces of shell back into an egg, but yes, in fact, a way to kiss a shard and maybe swallow it to see what your body can survive. Whew, all right. You know, when you have one more drink of your old fashioned than you actually want to have. All right, this poem is called Between the Lines. You suspect the roommate I bring home for Thanksgiving is someone I want around for Christmas too, so you say, if you're gay, I'll kill myself. You suspect after I break up with her and stupidly fall in love again that it isn't just a phase, so you say, I love you still. You don't like the new last name I take on with my once wife, changing the one word we once shared that paints our history in one thick line, but you say, I accept you no matter what. I come to the kitchen after getting dressed for a wedding, having held up 4 ties and 3 different suspenders from my press shirts, worried you'll notice everything is from the men's section, or that I feel more at home in them than in the kitchen you shred potato pancakes by hand. You walk over to me slowly. I get ready for you to say something I will try hard to forget. But instead, you silently untwist my suspender, hold my shoulders for a beat after and say, you look handsome, understanding somehow I wouldn't want you to call me pretty or beautiful, though you've called me that since. Whenever I'm at your house setting the table and waiting for you to fill it with dinner like I am in college again, you always offer to do my laundry. I only say no, that's okay, and not the other things I wish I could say out of a different mouth. If you wash my boxer briefs that aren't the boy shorts sold at Victoria's Secret, maybe you would know it's not a phase and be more ready when I say words like top surgery and hormones, and will you still introduce me to your relatives? You stopped trying to gift me jewelry, the soft gold bracelet that matches the necklace my sister loves, and you still don't know that the first button-up shirt I strapped over my chest was from your closet. My ex pretended to understand everything you did not. Didn't need me to translate my pronouns into a different language until the day I told her my most faceted stone of a secret. We were at her favorite neighborhood restaurant, the one we cried at and made up in, ate bread pudding like it didn't make her stomachs hurt, and she tried, I think, not to cry as I told her I might be somewhere on the trans spectrum, but she cried anyways and secretly hoped I would shovel the secret stone into a tiny pocket of a pair of women's jeans I forgot I owned. She had said, forever, no matter what, in all the ways you'll change. Sorry, let me take a sip of this. Whew, you know when you get that frog in your throat? All right, she had said forever, no matter what, in all the ways you'll change. But except this isn't cursive on a piece of beautiful turquoise paper you rewrite and rewrite again. It isn't dreaming about how your life might be easier if only just. It isn't a picture of my long hair she kept on her phone. You knew, I think, when I asked you stop calling me daughter and explaining that I didn't want you to call me son, that I wasn't joking. You knew, I think, that Google Translate couldn't help this time. Still, you say the right things like, I'm sorry, I love you, I will try. And I'm trying my hardest to let that be enough until you can bring me home to your Catholic Korean cousins and not say, this is my daughter or my girl, but say, this is my autumn, and be able to hold all the silence that will follow. Thanks, y'all.
It's really unfair that I have to come on right after each of you because I'm like almost crying every time. So I blame you all for being so incredible. And now I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Louisa Flynn Goodlett, the author of Look Alive that you're all here to celebrate, finalist for numerous prizes, including the National Poetry Series, and winner of the 2019 Cowles Poetry Book Prize from Southeast Missouri State University Press, along with 7 chapbooks, most recently The Undead, winner of Six Finch Books 2020 Chapbook Contest, and Shadowbox, winner of the 2019 Madhouse Press Editors Prize. My poetry can be found in Tri-Quarterly, Third Coast, Pleiades, and elsewhere. I serve as the editor-in-chief of Foglifter in sunny Oakland, California. And when I'm not doing all of those things, I cuddle my miniature poodle mix, Winnie, hone my bartending skills, and watch calming British mystery series or horror movies. So now I'm gonna read some poems. Okay. Things I could tell you about onions. I came out teeth first, took an apron string in my mouth, stirred what was caramelizing so she could tend to dough, breathing under a towel. Some world is always vanishing. Broth cooks off, sugar feeds yeast. Still, I strive to affix, dent others like copper, swallow the wedding ring to keep it, most often fail. My fire's fed with papery skins, rings tears, casts an uneven amber light. Middle school prayer. Give us heedless, skull-bashing closeness, all lanyards and boy bands, thighs clenched as teeth. Let us maul ears as practice, tug lips raw, then sleep anywhere, through anything. But we can't stem this current with lip gloss and Judy Bloom. As slip knots loop new breasts, days dole out fewer carrot sticks, crane necks over porcelain. And there's no one moment when we begin to be shaved thin as truffles onto waiting plates. No day to travel back to, lay palms against fevered foreheads, say, come with us if you want to live. Just a trigger warning on this poem for violence, which will be clear quickly. Spring in Laramie. Yawning for coffee, the exit's taken before we mark its name. There are bagels, cold discs of cream cheese, then the detour snakes us away from the highway. No brambles to stumble or humidity to slick skin, but we know it here. Have only just begun to shed its silences, loops of barbed wire, and beyond, all yellow and purple, the prairie, a bloom with bruises, both faded and freshly made. And then this is also a poem that I would give a trigger warning for sexual violence. How to Tell. When put plainly, it's obscene, artless gestures, drunk sisters, and a hammer fight reduce us to baser matter, body against body, sully those who handle it. Although we never sought it, even while it's happening, can hardly believe it. Though, being girls, we'd prepared since birth, and so say, take anything you want. We'll never know what he wanted, other than a clump of hair. You back away. Heard enough? So how to tell without handing over this wet weight like an empty overcoat? Then as you finger buttons, rummage through pockets, explain, this is nothing. We haven't even begun. Rage. Steam slips between lips as I suck its wad in my cheek, then taste iron, bit tongue. It won't be tamed and flown, hawk-like shadow scattering mice. Yet I'm fond of where it first entered, the centipede scar, staple marks scurrying up my left eyebrow. Children reach to stroke it. Soon all these hairballs will be coughed up, fuse as a wick, awaiting only a spark, whatever strikes next. Borrowed time. Since unlatched baby gate tumbled me down 2 stories, from loft to tile, mother sure I hadn't survived. Since father heard her from the creek where he was caning chairs and ran. Since cracked skull, body cast. Since 9 months old, I remember none of this. Since dark wings swept overhead, then retreated. Father says my fontanelle's web of fractures let the light in. But I know. When the other world spread arms to embrace, I chose this, opened my eyes. And this poem is a content warning for suicide. 7 years after. I know you believe in nothing. So when you step off the fire escape, fall into nothing. Never bloody the courtyard snowdrifts. Nobody screams, rushes down to slick dress red. But as of today, I'm the older one and can't say there's much to recommend it. Just more living, which you'd already tried. Yet you were wrong. Aren't nothing. The atoms you animated reapportioned to whitecaps, peaches, ice sweating in whiskey, and escape was impossible from the start. It all keeps going, takes you along for the ride, with us, always. And this is my last poem, 3 choices. First, left she who sowed fields with salt, crammed clothes in trash bags, bolted. Second, this sea glass coast, moss on redwoods. Lastly, a different woman, books unpacked onto my shelves. These 3 sketch Polaris, point due north. But when feverish, babbling into her neck, it's clear that I move my pieces without glancing at the board. Ran to check the mail as a plane crashed, roof ablaze. I wasn't spared, didn't learn a thing. Will stumble through the next doorway, grope for the light. Thank you. So those are my poems. And now it's time for the Q&A. So if you would like to drop some questions into the chat, I'm gonna pull them out and ask them. And I think all of the panelists can feel free to turn their videos on, because I'll ask the questions at all of us, unless they're specifically for one of us. Okay, I'm gonna ask the question that my wife asked, because I get to. So Anna Anderson asks, this one's for all of the readers. Has the way your poetry engages with questions of sexuality and gender changed over time? And if so, how? I know it's a big question. I mean, I can go first, and then maybe it'll spark other people to go. When I was coming up through undergrad and grad school, I never wrote about being queer. I had really internalized this message that was the way to get yourself shelved on a shelf that no one wanted to read. And I think it was honestly only working with Foglifter these past 5 years that I saw the breadth of queer writing and was like, oh shit, that was not true. That was just oppression. And so I think much more, I've engaged with it much more. And the new poems I'm writing even that aren't in this book are very, very gay. So I think only more and is my answer. What about y'all?
Whew, what a process, to be honest. I go back through my book that came out last year, and I'm changing all the pronouns and all the gendered words in them, changing all the instances of daughter. So to me, it's a time capsule of how I've allowed myself to understand myself as I've been around more queer poets and people who help me be brave and name who I am. And writing feels so tied with that, with the practice of identifying myself truly, but also giving myself a chance for that process of, going back in your book and changing your pronouns.
I can offer my thinking, for me, what I've noticed as a change in my lesbian identity showing up in, I guess, less showing up in my poems, but more showing up in how I position myself within poetry. The shift has been that when I was earlier in my poet life, I think I was kind of oh, I don't want to be pigeonholed as a lesbian poet, or if someone, I remember a professor was you really need to dig deep into Eileen Myles, there's something there, and I was I'm I don't just need to read Eileen Myles because I'm a lesbian also, like, and was like grumpy about it. And now I'm like so proud and grateful to be part of a lesbian poet lineage. And I think part of that was like also leaning into like specifying my identity as being a lesbian person, beyond part of like as a specific part of the queer community. And so now I'm dedicating my poems to Mary Oliver, and very, very humbled and honored to be a descendant of that lineage.
Any other thoughts or feelings? I can ask more questions.
Yeah, I think I may be working in a different direction where I felt encouraged to be, I don't know if I can say that, encouraged to be pigeonholed, encouraged toward a particular kind of lineage, and it was welcoming. And I think that part of my process over time has been not just identifying from that, but removing some of the pressure that I've felt to, I don't know, represent in some small kind of way. One thing that I'm thinking about, for example, is pronouns, and pronouns feel like the hill everyone wants to die on right now in my community, which I welcome. Everyone can die on whatever hill they like. It's not the hill I want to die on, though. And I actually really resist, or have had to learn to resist, rather, the conversation around pronouns. We don't have pronouns in ASL. And so for a long time, I was like, why do I feel so weird about this conversation? Everybody's like, what are your pronouns? I want to know how to treat you, is how it felt. And so resisting that and being like, it's just not a priority of mine. And I respect that it's a priority of other people. It's a huge priority. But sort of making space to not be part of a lineage that wants to gather in that particular space and work in that particular way. I think poems have given me permission in that unexpected way to insist upon my own linguistics, my own language that does not require such things. So I'm grateful for that.
Wow, it was so beautiful. Yeah, I think for me, I think I've learned to compartmentalize less, because very early on, I got feedback of things like, oh, if you're writing about immigration, if you're writing about family, if you're writing about these things, that's separate from writing about queerness. That either it's like a family story or a queer story, it's an immigrant story or a queer story. And I think I just learned that all of these things have been shaped by each other, and that there is no way to kind of compartmentalize or separate those things, and that there is a kind of intersectional way that, yeah, I've been shaped in all those ways, and that my writing could also be all of those things and contain those multitudes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I love the idea of a language without pronouns too. I think they're so important for us to relate to each other in English, but then, I don't know, I've had conversations with other people about other languages where it's like they're not as important, or every word has a gendered ending, and so it's like so much more important. And just, yeah, it's an interesting way to like reflect. So Dicey asked in the chat, what works of writing and other media have inspired everyone during these strange times? I mean, I'm definitely going to just jump in and say that Bestiary really inspired me. I just really, really loved it. And it's so like alive. I think there's something about, especially in this time when we're all really isolated and don't get enough sun on our little faces, feeling something that's really embodied and like the physicality is really present. It made me feel more like a creature in the best way possible. And obviously there's a lot of magical elements, and that also is, I think, is really cool. So yeah, I guess that's mine. I loved it so much.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for reading and speaking about it. My thing is actually kind of strange. I don't know, is it strange? I've been rewatching all of Frasier, which is the sitcom from the 90s, and I have had like a lifelong obsession with Frasier. And for a long time, I couldn't quite figure out why. And it was only on this maybe like 55th rewatch of it that I realized the reason why, of all the sitcoms to kind of gravitate towards and latch onto, this one was like about intergenerational relationships. It's about a son caring for his aging father. And that to me was a very Asian American narrative. And I was like, oh my God, I was seeing, like, I felt very represented by this show, not because I'm like this like psychiatrist, this like white psychiatrist living in a high rise in Seattle, but because like the central kind of a lot of tensions of the show is, what does it mean to take care of your parents? And that to me has always been like a very deeply Asian and Asian American thing. And so I was like, oh, no wonder. I was really obsessed. I was like, Friends who? Frasier. So that's been kind of my, that's been the thing that I've been clinging to, like a life raft.
Stephanie said this in the chat, but I also, everyone's watching Frasier. All of the, I got to get into it. I don't know if I've ever seen an episode, but apparently it's amazing. So that was a good recommendation. What about the rest of you? What are you feeling inspired and excited about right now?
I was like, trying to think of like literary media and all that. And I was like, honestly, for me, it's been Yoga with Adriene. Like doing Yoga with Adriene videos daily has just like, she's my rock. She's my woman. Like she's gotten me through 2 quarantine breakups. I felt like most read and most seen with the like reductress Instagram headline that was like, woman waste Shavasana worried about Benji's future death, essentially. I was like, that's me, because Yoga with Adriene's Australian cattle dog has become an important part of my psyche in quarantine.
I don't know who Adriene is, but I'm excited to find out now. I don't know how to answer this question. I'm not big on television, or it's not that I'm not big on media. It's like I'm so tired of this screen. Like, I love your faces, but I'm so tired of seeing them in this like 2D iteration. There's this field. It's like a mile from my house. I live in Amish country in South Central Pennsylvania, and I miss California. You mentioned California in your poem, Kaming, about sending them all to California, and I was like, but I like to go to the field because nobody can bother me in the field, and there are no screens in the field, and it makes me think about like when you first asked the question, I thought, oh, my window. Like, my window is my favorite media, because I watch my neighbors. I've become one of those people where I'm like, interesting. What is Franklin doing? And when I go to the field, I feel similarly. I'm like, oh, the baby birds have hatched, or the groundhog that was here recently has left a pile of sticks. Like, I mean, this is very mundane, I agree, but it's so different than like this kind of Zoom land and teaching online constantly, that I'm just like, I'm a little obsessed with the field right now. So I hope you come and visit. We'll go to the field together.
I wish I could say I didn't care much about media. It's a lot of media recently. If I just binge watched Sense8 recently, which is an amazingly diverse cast and such a queer cast, and I love that. But something keeping me through, I would say, are my students. We're in person, oddly enough, and we had a retreat this morning, and they're just finding new and different ways to connect with each other. And it's amazing to be around their creativity, and they keep me accountable to not just fall off into my black hole here, getting lost in our own world. So I've been very grateful to them recently.
Those are all great answers. I would like to go to the fields. Yes, for fields. I would actually like to go to the ocean. It's been too long since I have seen the ocean with my eyeballs. And I think that brings us to the end here. They said about an hour, and we have given everyone about an hour of our lovely time together. And I just want to again thank you all really so much for being here. It means absolutely the world to me. I really I could spend days saying how much I respect and appreciate you all as writers, and how lucky I feel. I just feel really celebrated. And people out there in Zoom land, you really should buy all of their books. They are really, really good. I'm going to post the links to buy them in the chat right now. So once you've bought mine, buy them too, because these really are the poets that have made my work possible. And yeah, I think we're in a really special time for poetry, and I hope tonight made you agree with me. Do you want to say goodbye, Evan?
Yeah, I don't have anything to add other than it's been an honor to host such a wonderful convergence of souls tonight, and to congratulate you, Louisa, on your book. And that's all I got. Thank you all so much for being here, and buy all the books like Louisa said, and read all these wonderful poets. That's it for now. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night, beautiful people. See you soon, I hope.